Okay, so I've run into a couple of issues. One of them is that my front-facing microphone is really super muffled, I realized. So I can't turn the camera, facing me where I could see it on the screen. So I have to use the back-facing camera. And then also, there's like no point in doing a live on IG if I can't see people that are participating, if I can't see what folks are saying. So I'm just gonna record today's whatever entry, if you will. And I was also gonna take a walk to do it today, but then like whatever the president announced his national emergency, and I kind of wanted to watch it to see what he would say, and I would say it was worth watching because like just this is crazy. All these press conferences are so insane, and just witnessing them is important so we could tell our grandkids like how crazy this time was. But but it took like 50 minutes, and then I got all these dishes I gotta wash now, and I don't want to like keep postponing, so I'm just gonna jump in and wash dishes on the good mic while I sort of talk about what I want to talk about today. Um, no script today. We'll see what's up. We'll get through the washing dishes. Maybe they'll limit the time. But we're gonna continue talking about my woe is me life. So I'll get this on here. So I mentioned that part of what I want to do is just tell my story more, blah blah blah, etc. Again, the context of all of this is that like I want to be less fearful of sharing what my story is. I want to be more brave, be more courageous, and sort of vent my frustrations. Because like I have to, because what's happened is I've become really paralyzed in like living a life where I'm thinking back on my past, and when I reach back there, trying to make sense of today, I keep pulling out a lot of like negative stuff, and that's been happening for a super long time, Um, the only time I can think when I look back as like this positive time is, from like 20 years ago when I was like a runner, when I was running in high school, and like I won the city championship, and I went downstate twice, and I even went to the national championship eventually, and that was just a really successful time for me, right? It was a time in my life where me by myself, essentially, obviously you have people training you, coaches and teammates that are pushing you, but especially with track and field, like you're either running fast or you're not, and so it was a time where me by myself, through my own work and effort, achieved something at a high level. And I'm finding that I'm only able to go back to that time to see positive things. And every other time is like really bad, A lot of negativity, a lot of resentment, contempt for people, all kinds of stuff, And I just want to start letting some of that stuff go, and I don't think I can let it go until I start telling those stories. And also taking responsibility, Some of the stuff is on me, the reason things go bad for me is not all bad luck. I think bad luck has something to do with it. You can't help the circumstances that you're in. Life throws at you whatever it's going to throw at you. Um, you can't completely blame yourself, or you're 100% responsible for every single thing that happens to you, because then, you start to feel worthless, Just from a mental health standpoint, you want to be careful with that. But you do have to start asking yourself, like what's going on. And part of the reason I also want to do this is, I've been watching this guy for a while. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk. And a lot of people don't like him, They, I think they think he's corny, and like the stuff that he says is kind of repetitive and obvious, and he's all about the hustle. Let me tell you a little bit more about this guy just really briefly so you can get the context. So first time I saw this dude online, I kept seeing his videos pop up, and for me there were just a lot of out of context videos. Like he was just saying, get out there and do your thing, and for me I was like, who is this person? Like why is this dude telling us to, go chase our dreams? Like I need to know who you are, dude. Like you're not just, and all the videos were just completely out of context like that. And these kept popping up, and eventually I think I got into, maybe it was a podcast, I think, because I do listen to a lot of podcasts. and you hear a little bit more of his story, and you get a little bit more about what he's about. And essentially, he's a guy who, you know, took over his dad's wine business, which was a successful business, but then like exploded it using, you know, uh, using the internet basically, you know, using social media, YouTube, things like that. Turned it triple or quadruple the business into a multi-million-dollar business, and now he's basically like a, you know, media consultant, something like that, working with big brands. And anyway, so you know, and when I see him encouraging people, I see him do one-on-ones with people that are like inspired by him and stuff. He's really compassionate with them, you know. And even though I still didn't quite get it, I was like, you know what? He doesn't seem like a fake dude to me. You know, let me just keep listening to this and keep watching his content or follow his content so I can keep getting it fed to me. So one of the things that did resonate with me that this dude said, this Gary Vee guy said, is when it comes to making content, he says that a lot of content creators get too caught up on the creating of the content, you know? That they're thinking too much about how it's going to be produced and not enough about just doing it. And I think that's true. And I definitely become a victim of that. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I started and never finished because they didn't think it was good enough. And you end up not doing it at all, you know? As opposed to just getting it done and getting that out of the way as like a piece of content in your journey, and getting to the next one and making the next one a little bit better. Essentially, you got to make today's stuff today. You can't make tomorrow's stuff today. Tomorrow's stuff is the stuff where you have more resources, more time, more support, and you can make higher quality stuff. You can't make that today. You can only make whatever you can make today. And then he says, you know, don't create, document, right? And what he means is, don't think of it like you're making something and put all the pressure of creation on it. Just document your journey, because basically he's saying only you can be you. If you're you, you'll be authentic. If you're authentic, people will connect with it. It's like, you know what, that kind of makes sense to me. You know, that makes sense to me, and it's the right philosophy. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. You know, I'm trying to document, and for me, it's like we're gonna see, you and I are going to experience one of three things, right? We're gonna experience my incredible triumph over all of my shortcomings or all the issues that I'm having, my absolute failure, where I'm in the exact same place I am today a few months from now or even a year from now, or some kind of combination, you know, something where I'll have successes, I'll have some failures, and we'll have to net it out, see where we're at. It might be in a totally different place than we expect, you know, but the most important thing is to move forward. And after my message yesterday, I got some notes from people that were like, hey man, you know, if you ever want to talk to somebody, I'm here. And I really appreciate those messages, you know, because it shows that people are compassionate, you know. But like, it's not that I want to talk to someone, you know. It's not that I don't have someone to talk to, you know. I do. And if I ever was in a serious crisis like that, there's people I can talk to, you know. My partner would never let me do that, right? She would never let me get to that place. My mom's always available, even though she and I don't talk that much. She knows if I'm in a crisis and what she would need to tell me to get out of that, you know. And my dad goes to church a lot, so he's got that stuff, and I got friends and stuff, you know. I got people I can talk to if I need to, but. And they know some of the stuff that I'm talking about. You know, they know some of the stuff that I'll be talking about when it comes to griping about my the things that I'm mad about in terms of like my work failures, my career failures. I just don't share it with everybody because again, I was so afraid of like the reputation and everything. So anyway, that's sort of what this is about, you know. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about some lessons maybe that I've learned or revelations that I've had. So this week I had a humongous revelation that you know, for a long time I've been trying to figure out why I've had so many failures in the workplace, you know. I used to work, let's see, let me think. My last 3 jobs, I essentially was made to go. I was forced to go from them. And even before that, the jobs I had, I didn't leave on good terms, you know. this is from, I would say, my entire work history, like ever after high school, you know? In high school, I worked at a banquet hall, and that was fine. That was a fine job. It was hard, but it was a fine job. I didn't leave on a bad note. But after that, almost every workplace has been a bad note, one bad note after the other. And I'm trying to figure out, well, what is it? And I always thought, and still do a little bit, that it was that I had really bad managers, you know? I had people that I thought just were just poor managers, didn't know how to manage people, and I sort of resented the way that they operated, you know? It was a lot of like inconsistency in what people say they're doing versus what they do in practice, and I just thought that was like, this is not the way I do stuff, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, if you're about this, then do it that way. You know, why would you say that if you're not about that? There's a lot of inconsistencies, you know, and then we get so upset about that and start, you know, just developing all this contempt for these folks. And it's happened from one job to the next, one job to the next. Every time I'm like, damn, that's what it's about. You know, when I came here, you said this, and now you're not practicing what you preach, and it's super frustrating for me. So I put a lot of blame on those people, on the manager or management team, for not living up to what they purported were their ideals. And it was like this betrayal to me. You know, I'm like, come on, man. Like, you're betraying yourself, me, everyone here on staff. You know, you're rewarding people who don't align with the values that you're purporting. Like, this makes no sense at all, and I just can't take it. And eventually, the relationship would sour enough where either I would leave mad or they'd make me leave mad. You know, they'd make me leave, and we were both mad. So anyway, but the thing I've been thinking about is, why is it so consistent? Because the fact of the matter is, the only common denominator in all of this is me, right? It can't be that all of these folks and these organizations and these people and these leaders or managers are all terrible, and only I'm the one that's right. Now, is it possible? Maybe, you know, of course it's possible. But is it likely? Maybe not, you know? So I have to really start digging deep and thinking about, why is it that I'm experiencing like these, what I would call failures, you know, of being able to develop these relationships, you know? And the thing that I kind of figured out just this week even was that what would happen a lot of the time is it's almost like I would overstay my welcome a little bit, and I would also, I would overstay my welcome in a way that was bad for me and for the organization, you know? Because what would happen is, you know, at the end of the day, you gotta understand, you're just an employee, right? You're just there to do a job. And that's how the organization and your bosses are gonna see you at the end of the day, you know? Maybe they appreciate a lot of what you do and your passion, your commitment, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you're just an employee. It's not your business. And they just need you to do the work, you know? And I'm more the kind of person that I really want to be connected to the thing that I'm doing, and I really want to be contributing, and I want to be improving things, you know? So when I think back to like jobs that I've had, you know, when I was working in a job where it was like a much larger organization that would have, you know, 20 people in a department, super quickly I would become like the manager person, or like the go-to person to deal with manager level issues. But I would never get promoted to manager, you know? They would just, you know, my coworkers would be like, oh, there's not a manager available right now. Lou, can you handle this? And then I will, and then everything's good. But then my manager wouldn't sort of acknowledge, you know, that work. Maybe the manager resented me or something. Maybe they thought I was trying to show them that they're doing it wrong and I'm trying to show them up or whatever. But eventually they just wanted me to do the job that I was hired to do, right? No, we don't want you to go above and beyond, man. We want you to just do your job. And they're right about that, you know. That's right about their prerogative, you know. That I'm just there to do a job, you know. So they would stop giving me problems to solve, right? They would just focus on these remedial things that we need to get done, not on the bigger stuff. So I get bored with it, you know, and I would maybe find other reasons to be mad, you know. Not to say that those reasons weren't valid, but they're being prompted by my disappointment and other things, It's like, you want me to do this really boring thing every day? Like, I'm literally saving us millions of dollars, and you want me to do this other job? This thing that, you want me to just do the reporting? That's it? The thing that we can just train anybody to do? Just literally anybody with a high school education, that could read and write, that can do? Okay, And again, I become resentful. And when I think back on my career, that just keeps happening, has kept happening over and over again, where, I don't have any more problems to solve, and I get bored, and then I get resentful, and then they sense it, and then it goes into a sour relationship, So I gotta think about how I'm gonna interpret that, and what that means for my future, and what kind of job I want, I mean, even in media, like, when I was in media where I'm doing a show every single day, that gets boring too, It becomes a grind, especially when you do like a daily show. And I was always trying to figure out how to make the show better. And not everybody was committed to that, Some people were happy with how the shows were, We're happy with the way things are going. I'm like, well, they're not perfect. Well, who cares if they're not perfect? We're happy with the way they're going. And it's the kind of thing where you're like, well, I thought we were trying to make the best show. I didn't think we were just trying to be okay with the shows we got and that kind of stuff. And then, eventually that you get soured about that, And again, it's a grind. Every day you're doing a show, and there's just so many parts moving, so many pressures. And that's the other thing too, is that my managers most likely are having external pressures from above, probably external from my relationship with them, that I'm not able to recognize or acknowledge, and that they're not willing to share with me. I just think about how, here's a good example. Here's a story. So I had a manager at this is one of my first jobs after high school, at I don't know. I mean, you can just figure this out, but for the sake of this video, I'll say at a major package distributor, okay? Like a really big logistics company, okay? All they did was deliver packages. And I worked there, and I was a pretty good employee, and I thought so at least. And I did a thing where I realized that people were really like mad when they're waiting for their packages, because that's where I worked. I worked in the area where if somebody missed their delivery many times, the delivery would go to like another facility, but that's where I worked, and you have to come pick it up. It'll stay there for a few days, and you got to come pick it up. And that's where I worked. And the people are, they got to go out of their way, and it's only open like during business hours, like 9 to 5. And anyway, so I noticed people were really upset, right, when they went there. So I suggested that we put a TV in the waiting room, and that we put stuff on the walls, because it was this really dank room. It was just like, white walls, fluorescent lighting, small, very claustrophobic. So that's what we did. We put the TV in there. We put like, I went to the thrift store and bought pictures of like fruits and stuff like that, and put it on the walls just to bring some color into the space. And ultimately, it worked. People were totally way calmer. We had a way better experience with them. We were getting better reviewed just for those little things. So I'm like, look, I'm doing amazing stuff. And I ended up having an argument with my boss shortly before I left, because one of the things that my boss really cared about was that that when we sign out a package in this, will call room or whatever, that the person leave with the package, okay? Because a lot of folks, when you get a package, I mean, it makes sense, right? You get something in the mail, you want to open it up right away. We're supposed to not let people do that. You have to, I'm sorry, you have to leave with it, and then you could open it in your car or whatever. Because sometimes they'll open it there and they'll leave the package there, and then I guess it looks like we took it. The person could say, oh, I didn't get my package. I don't have my box. Did you find my box in your area? I guess that was the logic behind it, right? So I remember there was an issue where, one of these boxes were left in our room, and my boss said that I had done it, right? You signed this package out, so it's your fault. You didn't tell the customer to leave with it, so this is on you. I'm like, really? Like, man, like, I'm trying to think back, like, all my customers the day before, you know, and maybe even the 2 days before, like, is there anybody that I could think of that took a package and didn't leave with it? Like, nah, I'm really diligent with it. I'm like, who was it? She's like, it doesn't matter who it was. I'm like, no, yeah, it does matter because, like, I don't think I did this. She's like, no, no, I'm telling you it was you, so it's you. I'm like, no, no, but you see, and I'm like, this is where I started to really get into this argument with her, you know, where I'm like, no, no, you see, but like, if you're just telling me I did something wrong, that's not going to be helpful, you know? I know what the rules are, right? You're just reiterating the rules to me. We should figure out, like, just tell me who the package was. I'll go on the computer, figure out when it was, time of day. That'll help me sort of jog my memory to figure out, you know, what were the circumstances that led to that happening? You know, was I distracted? Whatever. Let's try to solve the problem, you know? And she says, no, it doesn't matter. Like, none of that matters, none of that matters. I'm like, well, yeah, well, when did you find this package, right? When did you find this box? She's like, well, I found it this morning. And I'm like, okay, so like the box sat there all day. Like there's a bunch of people that came to work after me, you know, like you should bring all of us together in that case, you know, we should all talk about it because that means that they saw an open box there and just left it, you know? It's like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on? I feel like she's singling me out, you know? Like she's really like coming at me, not letting me like figure out what's going on, not bringing anybody else on this, like really blaming me, you know? And we just sort of kept going back and forth. And she said, do you know why this company is so successful? And this is where I was being a little bit snarky, right? Because I was just kind of over it at this point, you know? I'm like, well, because you're underpaying the people who are loading the trucks. You're paying them overnight. You give them no benefits, not until 6 months after they're doing that job. And the other company, the other two companies that you compete with are one, doesn't track packages very well, so we do and they don't. And the second one is more expensive. We're like perfectly placed in terms of a pricing standpoint. That's why we're so successful. She says, no, we're successful. This is what she says. We're successful because the managers here tell their employees when they're doing something wrong and the employees fix it. That's why we're successful, because people like me find things that are going wrong and we tell you to fix it. I said, well, you know, we just have a different philosophy of management because for me, a manager shouldn't just be pointing out when things are wrong. A manager should be finding ways to prevent the thing from happening in the future. They should be working with their workers to be able to solve these problems, not just point them out. It's like, no, 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 that's the same thing. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just like a semantic thing. Maybe we're just like saying the same thing in different ways. You know, maybe we actually think the same thing. And, you know, I use the word semantics, you know, and she straight up went nuts. She's like, don't bring those college words in here. I'm right and you're wrong. And you need to do what I say. I was like, all right, look, man, all I'm saying is you don't have any proof that I did this. You're telling me I did something wrong. I'm telling you I don't think I did. You can talk as much as you want. If I don't think I did something wrong, I'm not going to change my behavior. I'm going to do everything exactly the same. Until you can show me, prove to me that I did something wrong, this is a pointless meeting. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. Fine. And she turns on the computer and she's typing, you know, furiously. She's like, okay, fine, this wasn't you. You didn't sign this package out. I'm like, okay. So can I go then? She's like, yeah, you can go. And I leave the office, but you know, it's really sour mood. And eventually I had to leave that place, you know, because it was just like, things like that kept happening where like I was getting called out more than everyone else. And it seemed like she had it out for me. And I felt like I was really, like a lot of pressure was coming down on me more than anyone else. For things that seemed small or maybe weren't a big deal in the past and suddenly were. So I ended up leaving that place, you know, and, you know, on the one hand, is she a bad manager? Probably, right? Like she's not handling this properly. In my opinion, you know, managers are supposed to be like the bigger person, right? They're supposed to sort of give the employee the benefit of the doubt and find ways to like solve these problems, you know, like find a solution because it gets expensive having to hire a new person. So you want to, you know, spend some time trying to work with them. So sure, maybe she's a bad manager in that way, but was I a good employee? You know, not necessarily. You know, what's the harm, truly, of me saying, okay, I'm sorry, and then leaving, right? She would be satisfied herself, right? Of like, I told him what to do and he did it. We wouldn't have built up a bunch of tension, right? And I could have just got back to my work, you know. Now, if it happened repeatedly, let's say, or if the consequences are really heavy, because what are the real consequences? Is she going to fire me over this? Is that really the consequence out of this? Probably not, you know? I'm adding more grief for myself and for her. And I didn't help that situation. I think too often folks think like, well, I'm right. And because I'm standing on the right side of this, then I'm justified in my fight or in this thing that I'm battling. This I'm fighting against my boss or whoever, my coworker, even my subordinate. I'm right, so I have the right of way in this battle, and I'm gonna win. I'm gonna persevere because the truth will prevail, type of thing. Workplace setting, that's not true at all. Once you're engaging in this and let's call it an unhealthy combative way with the other person, both people fail. No matter who's right or who's wrong, both people fail because everyone around them is going to see that conflict as a problem, which includes both parties. Not one that's right and one that's wrong. It includes both of them, so it's both of their fault, and both are going to suffer. Especially if somebody's a manager and then there's a subordinate, and let's say the subordinate's right. You think the upper management is going to fire the manager because the subordinate said that the manager's wrong? That's a reflection on them too. They put the wrong person in management, right? In a position of management. They can't accept that criticism of themselves, that they also messed up. Even with being the right person, it doesn't even matter. You still lose, So these are the things that I have to think about, in my own career is how much have I contributed to that, because it's not the first time that I had, or the last time that I did that, where I was unafraid of the conflict and willing to go there and then creating these really ill feelings among everybody. Was I right? Maybe, but none of that matters. It's about what are the stakes, what's actually happening here, what is the potential outcome? Is it big enough to elevate things to a conflict situation, And I think other people understand this better. You probably got coworkers that are really well liked and live a long time, not live, but have worked a long time in the same place. And, for me, a common trait among them are they kind of keep their heads down, They kind of, they're cool. They talk about stuff. They might talk to you about what's right and what's wrong, but for the most part, they keep their heads down. They don't challenge authority too much, And it's one thing to challenge authority if it's like civil rights, right? Or anything that's like a big deal about humanity. It's another thing to sort of stand up to authority in like a workplace setting, especially a for-profit company or even a non-profit. Like, you're standing up for what exactly? What are the stakes here that we're not as efficient as an organization? Like what are the actual stakes here? So that's one of like the big failures that I've had that I've been able to reflect on and recognize in myself. And now I'm in the place where I'm thinking about where does that germ start? Like, where does all that begin for me, where it gets to that point? And, I'm still exploring that. I think, again, it has to do with me just getting bored. I don't have any more problems to solve. The things that I am doing are not appreciated. It's my own fault for not paying attention to what my actual, assigned tasks are and being 100% on those before I start jumping in on these other issues that I decided to deem more important than my daily tasks. I got to think about that kind of stuff. And going forward, what are the kind of workplaces or work situations I want to be in where I don't allow that to sort of manifest and become what it's become? Because again, at the end of the day, I'm the common denominator in all of this, and I got to take some responsibility for myself because, the artist, what's her name, Marina Abramovich, she's like this performance art person. She says that the artist must not only conquer their medium, right, like their art, but they must also conquer themselves. You have to really figure out what's holding you back and embark in a conquest over that, over whatever is keeping you from becoming great. That's what you have to do. And I think I'd like to think that that's the process I'm on now. I'd like to think that it's not too late for me to go on that process. And at the end of the day, I'm in a desperate situation, in terms of my own just well-being and my future. I really feel like, as I said in my previous message, is that I feel like my life is evaporating before me. I can literally feel all of the hope and dreams that I have had since I was a kid, like just melting away, evaporating out of my body. and I'm getting into this place of complacency where anything is acceptable, and my dreams don't matter anymore. So because I'm dying in that way, I have to do something, to try to save that, at almost 37 years old. So that's where I'm at. That's the reflection. That's the thing for today. We'll see how it goes. Peace.